Welcome back to the Bell Route Guide. Obviously last time we finished at Last Judge, and so we're going to carry on into Act 2 with the Scales Room. There's an incredibly precise wall jump right at the very start of the Scales Room in order to get through it quickly. It's also FPS dependent, which kind of sucks. In order to get it, jump onto this wall, dash on this wall to climb up, and the second you see Hornet's needle and her head poking above the ledge, that is the frame you need to be jumping in order to get enough height to get to the second set of scales. It's incredibly difficult. So here's sort of an easier path to take on the left side. It's about 3 seconds slower, but it's a lot easier. As you come into this next room, be careful of that saw because you can just run straight into it. Then I'm going to break this rubble above to get to the top area. Whilst climbing up to this next area, you can actually hit this lever to go down and grab a safety bench if you want to. Obviously slower, but also bearing in mind that if we get to Cogwork Dancers next and you die, you haven't taken any of the safety benches I've recommended you take, you'll be sent all the way back down to Widow, which obviously is not ideal. There are some rosaries here on the right hand side, but the only thing we're going to be buying now for the rest of the run, and that's even if you're buying it, is Sawtooth. So those rosaries and pretty much most of the rosaries you see in the rest of the run won't be needed, aside from one set which I'll get a bit more in depth to when we find it. Now we get to see the lovely Lace again, we get to have a chat with her, and then very quickly after this dialogue ends you're going to pogo off an enemy on the left to get up to the side wall. Interestingly, the enemy spawns when you first finish this sequence are different to the enemy spawns when you re-enter this room. So you only get one chance to pogo that guy, and then any time you re-enter this room afterwards he's just not there, which is quite interesting. In this room, these enemy spawns are slightly random, so sometimes you can just pogo straight through them, and then other times you have to jump over them. Now the movement in this room is quite tight in order for it to line up with the kind of the ticking platforms, or whatever you want to call them, but if you do move quick enough you can get these platforms at the perfect sync. Alternatively, a slightly faster path that pretty much everyone goes for anyway is instead of climbing the timed platforms you pogo off these spikes off the wall. Bit difficult to get used to, but we're also going to do another wall climb just like this in a second in the next room. Literally in this room here we're going to do the same thing, going up the wall and then pogoing off the spikes, which is significantly faster than going in the platforms in that room. Now if you remember me saying a while ago that pogos give you invincibility frames, we're going to use that here to pogo and dash through the reeds, through the grand reeds in this area. Again, you can do that on pretty much every enemy, but we definitely do it here just to get through them quicker instead of having to fight them or even go above them. Now, I will just mention the alternate routing you can take through Act 2 to get to the Cogwork Dancers. Obviously, the green line is the line that we've taken, and the red line is a line that mimics the path that the mist route takes, just in case, you know, you've already learnt the mist route and you're coming from that. Obviously, this will be significantly slower for Bell Route since you're going all the way to the right side out of the way. But if it's an option if you want it. It lets you access the Bellway if you want to for any reason. It's just easier movement for people that have learnt Mist and they're coming from Mist. I would recommend, however, learning the new movement, learning that green path that I've just shown, because it is significantly faster. Moving on to Cogwork Dancers, this is probably the most fun boss fight that I had in my casual playthrough. I love them a lot. It's also probably one of the easier fights. I'd say the only difficult part about it is the fact that they do 2 masks of damage, and phase 3 does move quite quickly to get used to, but I'll just go over a quick rundown of some tips now. As you just saw, you can actually scream skip at the very start of the Dancers fight, just by standing where this first dancer spawns, which lets you get in a good 3 or 4 hits before he moves away, and also because you can get in these 3 or 4 hits at the start of the fight, the very first phase can be completely scripted. You can do the same set of attacks and spears and always get a perfect phase 1, which is going to look a little bit something like this. And you can do this at the start of every single Cogwork Dancers fight to get phase 1 identical every time. Now, the dancers themselves don't actually share a health bar, they each individually have their own health bars, so throughout the fight you're going to be wanting to target one dancer and one dancer only. People usually prefer targeting the dancer on the right, that's just because he's easier to track, he doesn't get in the way of a lot of different attacks, and also when they do the attack where they combine in the middle, only the dancer on the right is damaged if you hurt them during that. I'll talk a bit more about that in a second, but for the entirety of the fight, you'll want to be targeting one dancer and one dancer only until they're dead. There's not many good points to heal during this fight. You can heal during this screen-wide attack, and you can also heal during their phase transitions where they go back into the background and get wound up, but otherwise there's not many great places to heal. Also, something else to mention is after this attack, it's quite intuitive. The dancer that you were looking at returns to the same spot. So you can see I was targeting the one on the top right there, and after this attack I'm still targeting the one on the top right. Annoyingly, that is slightly different for their other centre attack. For the central spin attack, after they've finished it, the dancers will return to their spawn positions. This means that even if the dancers are on the opposite side of what they're supposed to be, after this spin attack they will return to their spawn position. Also, during this spin attack that they do, when you throw a spear at them or damage them in any way in the middle of it, only the dancer that spawns on the right hand side at the start of the fight, only he'll take damage from the spear, which is again why a lot of people prefer to focus on the right side dancer only. During phase 3 of the fight, where the dancers start alternating their attacks, the dancer that spawns on the right side will always attack first. This means that if you lose track of them or they lay on top of each other during an attack, the one that attacks first is the right side dancer, and the one that attacks second is the left side dancer. So you can see in these clips, I'm focusing the right side dancer since that's what we prefer to do, so I'm attacking the one that attacks first. One final thing to mention is that you've probably seen in a lot of runs that people will quit out after beating the dancers in order to skip the very, very long animation of the background turning around. You need to make sure that you do not quit out too early. If you quit out too early, you're going to be sent back to the last save point that you had, which in some cases, if you haven't taken any safety benches, is going to be all the way back at Widow. So you need to make sure you do not quit out too early. The best way to tell the right time to quit out is when your auto splits for Cogwork Dancers. That's when you know it's safe that you can quit out. Now, all of that was a bit of a mouthful. That was a lot to take in. So here's just a clean fight. Again, I'm not a top runner, so take it with a grain of salt. But here's what the fight should look like. After you've beaten the Cogwork Dancers and you load back into the game, I'm going to turn around and talk to the three keepers of the threefold melody. And then we're going to start doing some parkour in the lower Cogwork section. There is a bench here on the left, but you don't actually need to grab it since we already have a hard save just after Cogwork Dancers, which is what has allowed us to save and quit, so you really don't need to grab that bench, not yet anyway. The movement through Cogwork Core can be a little bit tricky, but I'll just sort of show some fast movements versus some easy movements. This first room, you're just going to have to learn it. This room, however, here's what the fast version looks like. And here's what the easier version looks like. Now in this next room you actually need to be careful. We're not going to be doing any dive dashing, we're just going to be doing jump dashing. And that's because if you accidentally dive dash and hit one of these levers, you're going to have to wait quite a long time for this room to rotate and then hit the lever again. So just make sure through specifically this room we need to be jump dashing instead. Now at this point you've reached the Whispering Vaults arena. It's quite a fun arena to be honest, but it is also probably the first difficult arena. I'm just going to break this down wave by wave to show you some fairly easy but still fairly quick setups, and then I'm going to show you it a full run through in one go. For the first wave you're going to hit the enemy on the left 4 times, you're going to hit the flying enemy once, and you're going to hit the big guy twice. And then you're going to throw a spear that should hit all 3. For the second wave, you're going to start off hitting the flying enemy once, then the one on the left once, then the one on the right once. As the guy on the left charges towards you, you're going to hit him again, and then as the guy above falls down, you're going to hit him again, and then you can throw a spear to hit all 3. For the third wave, you're going to hit the centre and left enemies once and throw a spear, and then hit the third enemy once and throw another spear. Now sometimes when you do throw this spear, it's not going to hit the enemy on the right, and in that case you just need to hit him 3 more times. It's just a bit of luck of the draw, to be honest. Now this fourth wave is probably the hardest, so I'm going to slow it down and show it a couple of times. You're going to hit the enemy on the right 4 times, flying enemy on the right once, then the guy on the left on the ground once, and then the flying enemy on the left once. Then you can throw a spear to hit all right side 3 enemies, and then throw a second spear to hit the flying left enemy. I'll show that one more time, a little bit faster but still slowed down, just so you can get an idea of what it should look like. The final wave is probably the easiest. You're just going to hit this guy 5 times and then throw a spear at him. He can be a little annoying since he can do double mass damage, but it's not too bad. Now I'm just going to show everything together in one clean run. After beating the Whispering Vaults arena, you're just going to do some more normal room movement. However, once we reach the room just before Trobbio's arena, the path can split into sort of 3 different directions based on what you're going to do. The first path is just completely normal, the normal route that everyone does, or most people do. The second route is to grab a pale oil, so that you can go back and get your second nail upgrade. And the third route is going to be a warding bell skip, to get the silver cylinder early so that you have the option of completely skipping Trobbio, or just to use that as money for buying Sawtooth. I kind of explain now. This is just the normal route. You're just going to go up and you're going to go straight into Trobbio's arena room. That is it. Simple as that. For the pale oil route, you're going to come through and we're going to go just above Trobbio's arena exit and go through here. I'm going to go through this room that has a few enemies in it. And then we're going to go to the puzzle room. You have to solve a little sliding block puzzle to get the pale oil. Once you have the pale oil, you're literally just going to make your way back through, kind of retracing your steps, and then you're going to go through to Trobbio. So it's not too much of a detour, obviously much slower, but if you wanted to grab that second nail upgrade, if you feel like you need it, this is where we're getting the pale oil for that. And so here is where I'm going to bring up Warding Bell Skip. Usually when you go down here, this block is on a one-way track, so the only way to get it to move is by coming up through the underworks, grabbing the silver cylinder like normal, and then hitting it from the other side. However, if you down patch your game to any patch before 28891, I'd recommend 28714. It's just a good middle ground. It's used in True Ending. That's when they got their Vault Filament buff. It's a good patch for Sawtooth, since it's before the Sawtooth damage nerf. Obviously there's some routes that are limited to release patch, like the flea route and the key route, but point being, any patch before 28891 will work for Warding Bell skips. And you use Warding Bell in this spot when getting hit by the enemy. It'll actually hit the block through the wall, which will allow you to grab the silver cylinder early. After that, you're going to go give it to the Vault Keeper straight away, before seeing Trobbio, and then you're going to continue the route like normal to Trobbio. Now, the benefit of doing this is because when you give the silver cylinder to the Vault Keeper, he will give you 320 rosaries, which obviously is perfect for Sawtooth, since you need 230 rosaries for it, which means you never need to even get the early game rosaries that I mentioned before. But again, we'll see whether or not this is even allowed in the first place. But if it is allowed, obviously, you know, you get the 320 rosaries, you continue like normal, and then you go grab Sawtooth afterwards.
Buenera.
Now, if you're curious about why exactly this is called Trobbio Skip when I'm telling you to go and fight Trobbio anyway, by getting the silver cylinder this way, you can actually complete Skip Trobbio by going through White Ward, and then after getting Clawline, you can actually make your way to the Ventrica on the left side and take that back to Songclave. I'll show two images of the routing on screen now, one for Mist and one for Bellroot. More details to that though are in the Discord. This was unfortunately found to be slower, so if you want to have the fastest times, you still have to fight Trobbio. But a lot of work went into routing these, thanks to B, Vesper and Viviash. So if you're interested in having a look at the full routing, head over to the Discord and you can have a look at the any % White Ward thread. Anyway, back on track. After you've completed that room, we're now in Trobbio's room, and at the end of this hallway, you can actually go right here to just go and fight Trobbio straight away, which would be the fast thing to do. However, if you hit this lever and head out to the left, you can head into this bellway and there's a safety bench you can rest at, because chances are you're probably going to die to Trobbio a couple times in practice runs. Additionally, if you are getting Nail 2, we're going to buy this Bell Beast and we're going to go back to Bellheart now to go and get our second needle upgrade, now that we've got the pale oil for it.
Willianis, Esquera. Serra. Na, finestra. Bomba, namarelo.
And then this is how we're going to just make our way back to Trobbio after doing that, or most likely after you die to Trobbio and get sent back to that bench. Now, Trobbio's fight is quite difficult to learn. He moves around a lot, he deals double mask damage with his tornado and the balls that he throws out. It is quite a big choke point for the run, because it is just a difficult fight to learn. Tip number 1 at the very start of this fight, when he comes out the floor, this explosion can and will hit you, so just be a little bit patient or keep your distance for your very first swing. While he's doing his tornado attack, 2 of the only ways to hit him is to either pogo on his head at the very top, which is quite difficult, or you can throw your spear at him now. Just make sure you're far enough away from him when you're doing this so that when he finishes the attack, the mini tornadoes that come out don't hit you. During his second phase, whenever he does this underground attack with the explosions coming out the floor, he will always come out of the final explosion. So you can avoid all of them, watch where the final one is, and then you can hit him out of it. The best times to heal are going to be when he goes underground or when he does his screen-wide explosion attack, both of which are in this clip here. But otherwise there is really not many safe spots to heal in this fight. My final thing is less of a tip and more of just try your best not to get tilted. Sometimes Trobbio is fucking awful, and he will do a tornado attack into an AoE attack, into a ball attack, into another ball attack, into an AoE attack, into a tornado, and he's just going to make situations for you where you're just going to get hit. And you just kind of have to make peace with the fact that sometimes you're going to get hit, you're going to lose this fight, and it's going to take a lot of practice to get used to. So just try your best, try not to get tilted, and make your way through the fight. Anyway, here's a full fight. I'm not very good at Trobbio personally, but here's kind of what all of that together should look like. Now at the end of Trobbio's fight, you can actually grab his claw mirror, which is pretty nice for if you're healing during the later boss fights, to be able to do some damage to the boss. But to be honest, I kind of wouldn't recommend grabbing it anyway. And I'll probably end this one here. Next time we'll go over the underworks movement, as well as moving on to the upper cogworks movement, which is some of the most fun movement in the run, to be honest. But otherwise, I hope all of this has helped.